would you tell a new person about nutrients? I mean, how are we just dead horsing this? And it's
No, I don't think so. I would say, they're worth. I would say it's definitely worth paying attention to, especially early on. Get yourself a cheapo nitrate test kit. Get yourself a cheapo phosphate test kit. The checkers are cool, right? The little Hannah checkers, I like those. Those are easy. And track it. And it's cool to track it. And I would say it's actually valuable to track it. I was tracking mine at home to make sure that I wasn't going to zero. Um, for that purpose, I was trying to do the opposite of what I was trying to do 20 years ago, which is, oh, I gotta drop these things. I gotta lower them. I gotta lower them. I gotta grow algae in a refugium. I gotta run GFO to get these things down. Um, and yeah, that's where I started actually in my home tank. I was having this weird phenomenon that I wasn't expecting. It's kind of a long story, but I was dropping them because I was inadvertently carbon dosing without realizing it.
okay.
But I was quickly getting them to nitrate and phosphate down to zero, and that was causing corals to get pale. And then what I eventually settled on was adding a little bit of phosphate and a little bit of nitrogen, not as nitrate, but as ammonia, into the tank to sort of simulate food in a way, or simulate those nutrients as food. Um,
Why not just food?
well, I had a limit on how many fish I could put in there. So putting more pellet food in there just seemed a little bit silly. Then you just got pellets just sitting on the bottom rotting. That's not doing anything any good. Um, and I was actually adding quite a bit of liquid food in the form of Reef nutrition foods. So this is
Okay.
this was the genesis of sort of what was a mystery to me at first, but I slowly figured out, in which other people might encounter. I don't know. It's worth knowing that Reef nutrition foods are these little, you stick them in the fridge, and it's phytoplankton and it's copepods and it's all kinds of stuff that are in sort of this thick, almost like salad dressing thickness goo, and that preserves them much longer than they would normally be preserved. Well, the way that that preservative works is that it's organic acids, and I forget the list, but it's like citric acid and all sorts of other acids, and there's alginate in there as well. Those are organic molecules, and so they are doing the same thing that vodka or vinegar do when you dose those to your tank, and that's what's called carbon dosing, right? So when you add Reef Nutrition foods to your tank, you're carbon dosing. And at least in my experience, the carbon dose was more powerful than the amount of food in there. So it was very counterintuitive. Adding more Reef Nutrition food resulted in lower nitrogen, nitrate, and phosphate in my water, because I had a very powerful skimmer. It was that carbon dosing is turning into bacterial biomass and pulling out nitrogen and phosphorus with it. Um, and so my usual responses to those being low is, add more food. And I did that. I cranked up the little dosing amount of food, and that just kept it zero. And so I slowly figured it out. Um, and then what I started doing was adding into my top off water, because my top off every day was fairly consistent. I started adding trisodium phosphate and ammonium bicarbonate, um, very carefully. I would definitely not recommend anybody do this unless they've done their homework and can do stoichiometry and have a nice little scale at home and all that, especially with the ammonia, because you don't want to add too much ammonia at once. But you add an amount of ammonia that's roughly the same as what your fish would be producing every day. So you can essentially recreate, or like double your fish population. Think of it this way: you're doubling your fish population, but they're not pooping, they're not excreting all this other stuff that they're doing. It's only the ammonia, and then that feeds corals. Corals love it, but again, you got to keep it low. You don't want to spike it. That's toxic to everything.
Yeah.
And I
Trisodium
got that.
phosphate. I'm sorry, Matt. Trisodium
No,
phosphate
no,
is the same thing that they prep concrete floors for before you like. That's crazy. But I guess it's like
probably.
a pure form of it or something.
I think
DSP.
it's used as. I think it's a preservative too.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the important thing to know is that it's totally fine to put in a tank at a very low concentration, which is easy to do. because you're basically putting in phosphate, which is what you want to be putting in it. At least in my case, not everybody's case. It's not going to help you if your phosphate is already high. It's only if you're bottoming out your phosphate. And then it's adding sodium, which there's already a shit ton of sodium in seawater. So it's such a minuscule amount that it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking if you did that too much without doing water changes, like you would off balance the sodium chloride balance.
Yeah. After 50 years of not doing water changes and adding a bunch of it,
Okay.
I mean, you'd have to, yeah, it's such a
tiny.
small amount of phosphate, and then it's such a huge amount of sodium. Yeah, you can't buy just phosphate, right?
Yeah.
But also do water changes.
Yeah, I mean, even just small, modest water changes it would take forever for that to be a problem.
Yeah.
And then the ammonium bicarbonate, the bicarbonate just basically becomes alkalinity. But again, it's such a small component of it that regular water changes are going to balance your stuff out, the calcium and alkalinity balance. But for me, that was super helpful.
You use AFR a lot, Tropic Marin Alpha Reef. I use it too, and you know, from the way I understand it, where it uses like the calcium formate, like that's considered a form of carbon dosing as well, right?
Also carbon dosing. Yep, absolutely. So that in combination with the Reef Nutrition Foods was just basically supercharging the
Too much
process of stripping out nitrogen and phosphorus out of my tank.
Huh.
And so I just needed to add some more in.
What do you think about urea?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
I forget. What is urea? Is that ammonia? I'd have to look it up.
It's there seems to be some, if you're doing ammonia, doing what was it, like 20% of your ammonia as urea, seems to be a way to make it more accessible to, or somebody's saying it's making it more accessible to your corals as an initial food. And this is kind of based on, you know, that study that was done around, I think it was in French Polynesia, where all the birds are shitting all the time. And so the ammonia and the urea in the water right there is crazy high, and the corals are bomber. And the further away you get, the less delicious the corals become. So
yeah, I mean, sounds interesting. I mean, yeah, sure. I don't know is the answer to your question. I'd be interested to see. I mean, maybe there's a better version of it. I actually initially started out using nitrate. I was adding nitrate. That of course will increase your nitrate concentration. And then it was Sanjay and then Randy Holmes Farley that were talking about doing ammonium dosing.
yeah.
And there's a few papers out there about some corals using ammonia a little bit. It's a little bit easier for them to use it. Seemed interesting enough, and I tried it, and it was great because before that I was seeing stuff get a little bit pale, right, and it wasn't growing as fast. And then after I did that, stuff would color up a little bit more, and you're able to just dial it in. You know, I was dialing in my nitrate to be right around just enough, which I consider just enough. It was like 5 parts per million or something like that, right? And if it would go a little low, add a little bit more. If it went a little too high, okay, let's back off on a little bit. We don't need more than that. Yeah, it's kind of amazing how just nowadays everything is so, if you want to dial it in, if you want to get nerdy about this stuff, and
You can.
you can, yeah,
You
it's
can.
it's all available to you. So
I mean, I've got, you know, because the sodium, the ammonia bicarb and the urea is so inexpensive. Actually, the urea is more expensive, but I got it, both of them, and I haven't used them yet because I look at the amount of dry food I'm putting into my tank and I'm going, this has got to convert to ammonia very quickly. So but I'm also wondering if I add just a little, maybe it'll be good. I think when I have baby corals again, I'm going to add some of it, on the idea that I'm still hitting them with the kitchen sink. So if this is another piece of food that's easier for them to get nutrition from, I'm going to add it because it's a big system.
so why not?
But I would really like to see a couple people do tanks, you know, and so we can get some side by sides, or, you know, does the ammonium actually make a difference if you've already got everything you need, or is it better on its own? It's, you know, we keep seeing these bomber tanks shift gears and then still be bomber tanks. And I kind of go, well, that doesn't really tell me anything about any of these methods except that they all kind of work. So there's no real pathway. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what people do. Yeah, Ben, what?
I have a nerdy question that I wonder if either of y'all could answer, because I knew that about terrestrial plants and also algae is that, you know, people think like, oh, they want nitrates, but I know the same as in terrestrial plants and algae is that they actually prefer ammonia. So then let's look at the chemical equation, the NH4 versus NO2 or NO3. So I guess my question, I'm wondering, it must be that plants are after nitrogen, and then I think it's probably easier metabolically for a plant to remove nitrogen from hydrogen versus oxygen, and that maybe that's what's going on there. They could take the nitrogen off of NO2, NO3, but it's much easier for them metabolically to take it off of hydrogen instead of oxygen.
It's a good nerd question. I don't know.
Yeah, nerd question.
If someone knows, let us know.
There's papers out there that would say either one was more accessible, at least for corals. Like this coral, you utilize nitrate more effectively than ammonia, and then there's ones that say the opposite for a different kind of coral. So
made like an adaptation or something to.
I mean, I don't know. It might just be how that coral works. It's a really good question, and I mean, to me, it just tells me like I like what Rich is saying. Just do the shotgun approach, and if you can make all of it available, sure, why not?
When you buy urea, what is that, like laboratory made urea, or where is it from?
Okay. Well, you don't just make it yourself.
You're like, hey, Bob.
When I pull it out, I can let you know where I got it from. I haven't done anything with it yet, so I feel a little stupid for buying it. You need to talk to Justin or Salem about this stuff. But what I really want to see is these things happen in tanks, right? So I want to see things come from, Mind Story, which is not a negative to me. A Mind Story is just, I had this idea,
pre-hypothesis,
and I'd like to see it work. Just like I always thought, Zeovit. It's like, okay, that what you're saying all makes some kind of sense in my head. Now show me that it makes a practical difference in tanks. And I think given the fact that we don't see much Zeovit tanks anymore, the Million Monkeys have gone, yeah, we tried this and it wasn't worth the squeeze. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's always what I'm interested in. I guess I look at the ammonia and go, well, that's cheap and easy, and if you're careful, really low risk. So, okay, but now showing me that it actually did something is always the next question, and then the question after that is it worth doing? It's fascinating.
Like Salem says a lot, like we were seeing on that live stream we just did not too long ago, like, that there's all this cool testing out there now, and hopefully some people will pitch it. Salem was saying there's a lot of these companies that do like the NDOC and then all these bacterial companies that, these tests are a little expensive, but Salem's contact him and they're willing to like pitch in for him to do, like, because it's cool. They're there for hobbyists to throw money at them, but it's like, let's figure some shit out too,
Be much better than just throwing spaghetti at the wall and going, yes.
Yeah. I mean, let's put some of these Mind Stories to rest.
Which has worked out pretty well. I keep giggling at that the basics are still the same. No matter all the weird stuff that's come and gone in, 25 years. And see them coming back now, right? So even like the polishing filter, it went from a canister filter to a hang-on filter to an inside filter, in-tank filter, and now there's a new version by Heiger that's a hang-on the outside filter again. And I just love watching it all slide back and forth from form factor to form factor to form factor. I'm digging.
Which is like, that was a hot Magnum 30 years ago.
Someone's got to reinvent what, Maddie?
Somebody's going to reinvent the Beckett skimmers and the mesh wheel skimmers eventually, right? Those will come back.
I don't miss the Beckett. They skimmed great, but I don't miss those.
Drum filters are always on the edge of making a comeback, and then somebody goes, "How much is?" No, I'm not spending that much money.
Yeah.